Good morning. This is David Bennett, and this is Bitcoin And, a podcast where I try to find the edge effect between the worlds of Bitcoin, gaming, permaculture, podcasting, and education to gain a better understanding of all. Edge effect is a concept from ecology describing a greater diversity of life where the edges of two systems overlap. While species from either system can be found at the edge, it is important to note there are species in the overlap that exist in neither system, and that is what I seek to uncover. So join me in discovering the variety of things being created as Bitcoin rubs up against other systems. It is 9:09 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 12th day of August 2024, and this is episode 934 of Bitcoin. And we got a busy day. Things are going on at Bitcoin Magazine. Venezuela's got some issues with privacy, and Russia does too. And then there's going to be, let's go revisit the whole Bank of Japan thing and the raising of the rates and the freaking out of the markets, and then we'll do there's an issue going on with Binance and Monero. This probably is not going to be very good news to the Monero fans out there. And then we'll get into just a couple of other things, but let's start with this shakeup over here at Bitcoin Magazine. And it's really, it's not really a shakeup, but it is a changing of a major guard. Bitcoin Magazine, Nick Hoffman is writing. Author Aaron Van Weerdum has been appointed as Bitcoin Magazine's editor-in-chief. And before I get to the article, all I can say is that Aaron Van Weerdum is one of my favorite authors. I love reading his stuff, and he's been a really excellent Bitcoiner in the past. And I've had my issues definitely with Bitcoin Magazine. It's like a sort of like a love-hate relationship. I am hoping that as Aaron Van Weerdum becomes editor-in-chief, that he will be able to pull Bitcoin Magazine back into a little bit more of a conservative issue when it comes to Bitcoin, and maybe, just maybe, suggest to stop the shit coining. All right? Please, if at all possible. But anyway, Bitcoin Magazine is excited to announce veteran reporter and author Aaron Van Weerdum has been named editor-in-chief, a position that he has formerly held from 2021 to 2022. The appointment follows his sabbatical in 2020 to write the Genesis book, The Story of the People and Projects That Inspired Bitcoin, released by Bitcoin Magazine Books in 2024. Known for reporting on Bitcoin privacy, scalability, core releases, and more since 2013, he's been at this for a while. Van Weerdum brings a wealth of experience and expertise to Bitcoin Magazine's editorial room. A pioneer in the space, Van Weerdum is the industry's preeminent technical reporter. Quote, Bitcoin Magazine has always been a leader in Bitcoin technical reporting. I am excited to work with a strong staff of industry veterans to continue this tradition, Van Weerdum said. Quote, Bitcoin is a technology that will continue to improve and advance, and I believe Bitcoin Magazine can play a key role in facilitating this necessary dialogue with the community. End quote. Van Weerdum will be leading the editorial team in producing high-quality, insightful content revolving around the most important topics of discussion in Bitcoin, as well as resuming a leading role in publishing its quarterly magazine, which reaches thousands of subscribers. His deep understanding of Bitcoin's technical and economic aspects will undoubtedly enhance the publication's coverage and analysis, providing readers with reliable and informative content. Quote, Aaron Van Weerdum has long defined Bitcoin Magazine's editorial product and ethos, said Mike Germano, president and publisher of Bitcoin Magazine. Quote, we look forward to having him lead our staff at a time when presidents, senators, and celebrities are joining our readership's ranks. All right. So, again, my hope here is that Aaron Van Weerdum will be able to bring some, to pull Bitcoin Magazine back into a much more sensible position. It would be very nice indeed, because honestly, the ordinals and inscriptions bent that they went on, in my view, kind of damaged the brand. David Bailey won't say that. Nobody else at Bitcoin Magazine will say that. But I will say that I think that there's some very serious damage was done to Bitcoin Magazine's brand, at least for the people that are the hardcore guys that have always stuck by Bitcoin Magazine through thick and thin, all the way back to even when Vitalik Buterin started that whole magazine. So here's to hoping, but we'll have to see. Now, on down south to Venezuela, where they have blocked Binance as well as Twitter amid a presidential election dispute. Jesse Coughlin, Cointelegraph. Venezuela's government has blocked access to crypto exchange Binance, social media platform X, and other online services. In an August 9th Twitter post, local anti-censorship organization VE Sin Filtro said it, quote, detected a DNS block on the cryptocurrency exchange Binance, which affects the normal operation of its website and mobile application. Like several websites of companies from different segments in Venezuela, including social networks, Binance pages have been facing access restrictions, the exchange's Latin American-focused Twitter account posted on August the 10th. Binance assured its users that, of course, funds are SAFU, or safe, adding that it was monitoring the situation closely to address it in the best and quickest way possible. VE Sin Filtro recommended Venezuelans use VPNs, or virtual private networks, to skirt the block. The August 9th Binance block comes a day after Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said in a televised speech that he ordered telco regulator Conatel to ban access to Twitter in the country for 10 days, Reuters is reporting. Maduro and Twitter owner Elon Musk recently had a public spat. Both have offered and accepted challenges to fight each other. The encrypted messaging app Signal was also blocked the same day, according to Internet Monitoring Project NetBlocks. It added the app remains functional with the censorship circumvention setting enabled. Venezuela saw widespread protest after the July 28th presidential election, where Maduro and rival Edmundo Gonzalez both claimed victory. The country's government-controlled electoral authority named Maduro, of course, the winner, with just over 51%. Oh, just enough of the vote without releasing a detailed vote count. Well, of course, by God, how could you possibly have any kind of transparency whatsoever? Gonzalez claimed that the voting machine printouts his party had collected proved that he had won with nearly 70% of the vote. The United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and multiple South American countries have not recognized Maduro's claim to the presidency, and many have asked for detailed vote counts. Yeah, well, good luck getting them, because that's never going to happen, and Maduro is going to remain president of Venezuela, and marching around a fucking square holding a sign isn't going to do a whole bunch of good at all, because it never has. Do you actually think that the protests in Venezuela are going to change Maduro's mind? No. No, that is not going to happen. That's why I have a problem with protesting, because it doesn't do anything. Because nobody's actually willing to do that one extra step. And I'm not going to say what it is. Let your imagination run wild. But marching around in a circle, holding up a sign, doesn't do anything, and it never has. So I just don't get why people think protesting is going to do anything. It just never does. Russia, as well as Venezuela, has blocked Signal Messenger. Okay, this is out of no bullshit Bitcoin. So Russia, going over across the pond, Russia has blocked access to Signal app, prevent the messenger's use of terrorist and extremist purposes, according to what Russia is saying about it. Quote, user access to the messenger Signal is restricted due to violations of the requirements of the Russian legislation whose fulfillment is necessary to prevent the use of the messenger for terrorist and extremist purposes. Russia's telecommunications watchdog Commander, I don't, how does a Roskomnadzor, I guess is how you pronounce it, told Interfax the messenger was blocked in Venezuela following the disputed presidential election results from late July. President Nicolas Maduro has also ordered a block on social media platform Twitter. Yes, we know. Signal confirmed that some countries block its services and advise users to enable the built-in censorship circumvention feature. Signal's simple TLS proxy is available on both Signal Android as well as Signal iOS, enabling users to bypass network blocks and securely route traffic to the Signal service. Anyone can set up a proxy, and once deployed, users can provide a URL for others to use, sort of a Uncle Jim model. Quote, "We have already started working on more advanced censorship circumvention techniques, but in order for these efforts to be the most effective, we need the big companies who are dragging their feet on moving away from plain text SNI headers to start taking this problem more seriously," added the project. They won't. It is not in their interest to do so. It's just not going to happen. That's just nothing but wishful thinking. There's only one way out of this, and it's going to be things like Nostr. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's also going to include things like Fediverse, even though a lot of people don't like Mastodon and the Fediverse and how that works. And I don't like it either, but we need that network to be able to attach to the Nostr network. And both of those networks need to attach to things like, Peach? I can't remember. Hole Punch. And that entire ecosystem, all three of these things need to start commingling and have or build the ability for those three networks together to start sharing information in a more primal way, not just like a proxy way where if I post something to Nostr, it automatically gets posted over to Mastodon, blah, blah, blah. That's just not enough. It just isn't enough. There needs to be more of a, and I dare I say it, hold on for a second, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Where was I at? You know how there's that cartoon where it's like there's 14 different, protocols or conventions or something in computer science, and somebody says, this is ridiculous. We have 14 different ways of doing this one same thing. What we need is a brand new all-encompassing protocol, and the last frame is like, now there's 15. Yeah. So I don't want to say that. This has to be something more, way more base. Something that is so ridiculously easy to read, like whether it's a note or whatever, a toot over on Mastodon or whatever they call it over on, like the ecosystem of Hole Punch, that somehow or another there's just enough information to be able to parse that for all three of these networks. And you can remain native to your network and have, much more robust things that you can do. But I really believe that when I talk about mycelial networks in the soil, like two different fungal networks that are of two different species, and the possibility that they can connect to each other physically and open up a direct physical fluid-filled channel so that whole nucleuses or nuclei of cells and all of their information, i.e. the DNA, can travel freely between two separate and, completely separate organisms. If we can do that, if we can take that idea and inject it into things like Mastodon, Fediverse, Nostr, the Hole Punch and Signal and all that kind of thing, then what you end up with is a super organism that there's just no way to stop. It's just it's like whack-a-mole at that point. But X, Facebook, you forget it. All of legacy social media, it's all dead. They just don't know it yet. The problem is that people refuse to stop using it because once they do, they lose their audience. And they don't want to lose their audience. It's like a drug. It's highly addictive. An audience is highly addictive, just like the dopamine hits you get when you just get a simple like from somebody who, quote unquote, may not even be in your audience. It's all about addiction. And one of the things that Nostr has done for me is completely break my addiction. You'll notice that I haven't really been posting on Nostr lately, because I've been on vacation, but you know what didn't happen? I didn't feel like I needed to. And therein is a very important lesson for me personally, is how to break that addiction. And one of the ways that you break that addiction is you start using something like Nostr. If you're not using Nostr, if you haven't tried it, you have nothing to lose by trying it. And it very well may be And I do believe this. So for you, it very well may be, but for me, it is the only way that I can move forward. Right? So with that said, let's go over to Japan, where an ex-Bank of Japan official has ruled out another rate hike this year. This is an opinion. This is an ex-Bank of Japan official. So take everything here from CoinDesk written by Omkar Godbol with a grain of salt. A former, just to preface it, a former Bank of Japan official said that the central bank would defer additional interest rate hikes to next year, suggesting a preference for market stability over the near term. Quote, they won't be able to hike again, at least not for the rest of the year. Former board member Makoto Sakurai said late Friday, according to Bloomberg, quote, it's a toss-up whether they can do one hike by next March, end quote. The Bank of Japan raised its key interest rate to about 0.25% from a range of 0 on July 31st, delivering the very first hike in over a decade. The central bank also signaled additional rate hikes. The shift away from the zero interest rate policy pushed the Japanese yen higher, triggering an unwinding of the risk on yen carry trades. The resulting slide in traditional risk assets weighed heavily over BTC, crashing the cryptocurrency from 65,000 to roughly 50,000 in less than 7 days. Bitcoin has since recovered to trade above 58,000 amid signs of risk reset on Wall Street. The market turmoil saw Bank of Japan's deputy governor Shinichi Uchida walk back on the bank's hawkish commitment, saying that it would not hike rates when the markets are unstable, whatever the hell that means. Quote, Uchida's remarks were appropriate because market stabilization is very important now, said Sakurai. Quote, the Bank of Japan is moving from excessive monetary easing to appropriate monetary easing, and the biggest problem is that Ueda failed to communicate firmly that they will maintain easing. That's always been a condition that they've kept, Sakurai added. So they are probably not going to raise rates until sometime next year. That doesn't mean that they won't, clearly, but what I wonder is if the Bank of Japan somehow or another is going to be the anti-pressure release valve to the fact that the United States is probably going to start easing its rates. And that somehow or another that there's got to be a balance. And since Japan and their entire economy has basically been friends with the U.S. since the end of World War II, forcibly at first, but then it actually looked like we actually really did develop a very, very good relationship with Japan, that Japan somehow or another is going to take the brunt of the fact that the United States, being the largest economy in the world, is going to have to start dropping rates. They just have to. Well, that balance is probably going to be need to be offset, because natural systems and economies are one of them, no matter how disgusting ours is, because it is fiat, it is contrived, it is all this. But remember what I always say. The rules of the universe apply to everything that is created inside the universe, because that which created it was created by the rules of the universe. So we pass through this notion of balance. And what I think is going to happen is that next year, Japan is going to sacrifice itself on the pyre of economy so that the United States can start easing rates so that the entire world economy doesn't collapse. And that's under the entire fiat mindset. Bitcoin doesn't give a shit. Let's run the numbers. CNBC Futures and Commodities. West Texas Intermediate oil is back up to $78.78 after a 2.52% rise. Brent North Sea also up just over 2% to $81.30. Natural gas up 1.77% to $2.18 a thousand, and gasoline is up almost a point and a half to $2.42 a gallon. All your shiny metal rocks are happy today, so that makes Peter Schiff very happy. Gold is up 1.25 points to $2,504.70. Silver up 1.5. Platinum is up almost 2 points, as well as copper, and palladium is up 1.13%. Ag is fully mixed, mostly to the red side, though. Biggest winner today is coffee, 3.3% to the upside. Biggest loser today looks like cocoa, which is down 6%. Wow, that's a hell of a move. Live cattle down a third, lean hogs up 2/3, and feeder cattle are down 2/3. Legacy financial markets, Dow is down 1/4 point. The S&P is up 0.15. NASDAQ is up 1/3 point, and the S&P Mini is down 1/2. Let's see what's going on over here at Clark Moody. Bitcoin price is $59,820. That is a $1.18 trillion market cap, and yet we can still purchase 24.4 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,738,796.12 of, and fees remain low on average on a per block basis. 0.05 BTC taken in fees on average on a particular block. Now, how many blocks are there? There's just under 200,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting for 121 blocks to clear at high priority rates of 4 Satoshis per VByte. Low priorities are also 4 Satoshis per VByte. Hash rate looks like it is back up to 667.1 exahashes per second. I wonder if we're going to see that 780 exahashes per second again anytime soon. Now on to Queen Freeze, which was episode 933 of Bitcoin, and Dubrovko with 2190 sat says, I meant to say I miss you. K is right above M. Never mind. I stand by it. If you don't interview the rancher selling starter cattle for $3K, I'm going to thump your forehead with my finger, though. FTX and Alameda having a lifetime ban is really funny. Quote, y'all can do whatever, you can't do this. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. What are they going to pull? Well, hold on. What? Are they going to pull a reverse Nintendo and start making playing cards? Suck it, Trebek. O2ZX 421 Satoshi says, ABC, BTC, GBTC, LBTC, WBTC. I give you BTC. You give me the donut. We don't need to bring the entire alphabet to this translation. No shit. Pies with 420. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. God's Death with 237. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. And O2ZX with 124 Satoshi says ... transaction. Okay, yeah. The entire alphabet into this transaction. That looks like what he was about to say. All right, that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news you can use, and bad news for the Monero people. Binance will start converting Monero to USDC on September the 2nd as part of the delisting. Adrian Zmunsky from Decrypt, following Binance's February announcement that it would delist Monero and its finalization later that month, the exchange has now announced its very last steps to get the privacy coin off of its platform, because God forbid, when you're dancing for the fiat man, your skirts have to be a particular length above the floor. You know, there used to be a time when Binance would just thumb their nose at everybody, and granted, they did so for a lot longer than I thought they'd be able to get away with. But what's really sad is that we keep going back to exchanges like Binance and Kraken and Coinbase, and they're all going to comply because they're all weak and spineless and sackless, for that matter. The only way through this is with decentralized exchanges, and nobody seems to be using them. There's HODL HODL. There's BISC. There's at least 3, and there's probably more like 7, and I just don't know about the other ones. But, you know, HODL HODL and BISC, good place to start. Just go look at it. It's not all that complicated. You don't have to buy or sell anything. Just go look at the interface and say, you know, and then kind of try to figure out, what does it mean? How do I do a transaction? Get on their Reddit and, you know, or their Telegram and start asking questions about it. How does this actually work? Because honestly, you're going to see Binance and Kraken and Coinbase pretty much delist everything that has anything to do with any kind of safety whatsoever. I'm not a Monero fan. You know this. But there's only, after Bitcoin, there's only two other coins that I would even consider as potentially not being a complete shitcoin. And it was simply because of the way that they were launched. But one is Monero and the other one is Zcash. That's it. Everything else is a complete and utter shitcoin. And I don't even really lit Monero and Zcash out of the shitcoin category. I just think that they're closest to the exit. That's all I'm saying. So I'm just be aware. But anyway, in an August 12th blog post, Binance said that it will convert the balances of 15 different tokens, including Monero, to USD coin on September the 2nd, 2024. The conversion will be complete and USDC will be in users' wallets by March the 1st, 2025. The announcement explains that the conversion rate for the assets will be based on their average exchange rate between September the 2nd, 2024 and March the 1st, 2025. The affected assets other than Monero are Bitcoin Gold. God, you remember that shit? Bitcoin Standard Hash Rate Token. Never heard of it. BitShares, District OX, Groist Coin, Hygik, Mobile Coin, whatever. These are all shit coins. Oh my God. For what it's worth, XMR seems unfazed by this latest stage of Binance delisting. At the time of writing, Monero is trading for $149.38 after having fallen 0.2% since this time yesterday. But the delisting of a privacy coin like Monero by the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange by volume does set a troubling precedent, said Web3 Privacy Now core contributor Mikola Suzuko. Quote, Binance is widening the gap between original decentralization ethos and regulated surveillance capitalism. Yeah, I'm not the only one thinking that. Good. Misleading millions of people what the Web3 is about, permissionless and freedom, he told Decrypt. Quote, basically, they are proving to be part of surveillance apparati. End quote. Mobile coin, like Monero, is a privacy-focused coin. It uses ring signatures to conceal transactions, which is similar to how Monero works. Binance users will be able to withdraw the assets from the exchange up to September the 1st, 2024. And of course, Binance didn't, respond to requests for comments. Privacy coins are cryptocurrencies designed to enhance transaction anonymity beyond what standard cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin offer. They use various cryptographic techniques to obscure transaction details, such as addresses and amounts, making it extremely difficult to trace or link transactions to specific individuals. While advocates argue that these coins protect user privacy and bring cash-like anonymity to digital transactions, critics point out their potential for illicit use in areas like ransomware payments and money laundering. Popular privacy coins include Monero, Zcash, and Dash, each employing different methods to achieve anonymity. However, these coins face regulatory scrutiny and potential bans in some jurisdictions, with some cryptocurrency exchanges delisting them due to compliance concerns. Despite these challenges, privacy coins continue to gain popularity among users seeking enhanced financial privacy in the digital realm. Again, that's the end of the article, but the stuff like Monero and Zcash, and I've been seeing a lot of chatter about Monero specifically on Nostr lately, and it's like a lot of people that I followed on Nostr that had never said anything about Monero before are starting to talk a lot about Monero, and I'm basically I've got to unfollow. And it's not because of an ethic, it's not because of moral. I just don't give a shit. I don't hate Monero like I hate Ether, right? I'm not in a position where I just find myself nauseated at the thought that Zcash exists like I am with, Ether. But I don't have time for this. I just don't. So understand that if you start talking about Monero, I don't want to hear it. It's just, it doesn't make, it's not that it doesn't make sense to me. It's that the world is so cucked at this point, and all of the people that we thought were on our side over the last 10 years are falling away like flies because they are getting smoking hot rich. That's what getting rich will do for you, is that then you start having to protect your wealth at all costs. And you will do anything, like Brian Armstrong will do anything to make sure that he retains his wealth. He will wear however long a skirt he is required to wear. He will ask how high when he is told to jump by the United States authorities. And this will go on and on and on. The only way to circumvent this is to reinstall the same ethos that Bitcoin had in the beginning and that Nostr has right now. Complete decentralization. Almost a complete ability to eschew wealth or the potential of wealth, at least in the short to medium term, just so that you can build the thing. Because if you build the thing with wealth in mind, chances are good it's going to become, or you and your thing will become co-opted by those who are going to protect their power at any cost. Except it's so cheap for them to protect their power because all they have to do is threaten to take away the wealth of somebody else. And then all of a sudden you get compliance. And that's how it works. But some people will fight. Like this dude over here in Nigeria. Nigerian Bitcoiner sues government for the right to own, acquire, and trade Bitcoin. Nigerian Bitcoiner and politician James Otudor has taken a bold legal stance to advocate for the fundamental rights of Nigerians to own, use, and trade Bitcoin, stablecoins, as well as other digital assets. He announced legal action against multiple Nigerian government and regulatory bodies, including the President, Minister of Finance, Attorney General, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Nigerian Police Force, the National Information Technology Development Agency, and finally, the Nigerian Communications Commission. Whew, good Lord. I mean, that's a lot of lawsuits to file. Otudor argues that, quote, the ongoing targeting of Nigerians who own and use cryptocurrencies is a clear violation of their fundamental human rights. Bitcoin and other digital assets are vital tools for protecting savings from inflation and enabling international transactions, particularly in light of Naira devaluation and foreign exchange shortages. Quote, it is our submission that the rights to acquire Bitcoin and other digital assets have been severely infringed on, as the Federal Republic of Nigeria and its agencies have forced telecom companies to prevent and restrict innocent Nigerian citizens from acquiring, holding, and accessing these assets, Otudor said. The lawsuit seeks the following remedies. 1. The immediate removal of the block on all crypto exchange online platforms, ensuring unrestricted access for all Nigerians. 2. A declaration that the right of every Bitcoin, USDT, and other cryptocurrency holder be protected as well as guaranteed. 3. A declaration that the infringement, victimization, and human rights violations of those who own, use, and trade Bitcoin, all USDT, and other crypto in Nigeria is unlawful, unconstitutional, as well as illegal. And finally, 4, establishment of regulations for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency assets within the Nigerian financial ecosystem, recognizing their distinct categories and regulating Bitcoin as a commodity. Quote, this legal action represents a peaceful protest for freedom and financial inclusion. As a nation founded on human rights, it is our responsibility to ensure that the rights of Bitcoin, USDT, and other digital asset users and holders are protected and guaranteed, he added. So this dude just getting all up in these people's grill like a son of a bitch. I mean, that's like he's suing 7 agencies in Nigeria. I just hope he survives it. I mean, physically, because Nigeria ain't exactly a nice place to be, and they do some pretty nasty shit sometimes. And finally, for today, UN Cybercrime Draft Convention approved unanimously despite widespread opposition. The United Nations approved its first cybercrime treaty a massive surveillance pact that mandates intrusive domestic surveillance measures and states cooperation in surveillance and data sharing in a unanimous vote last week. Yes, they unanimously voted to bend over their citizenry. The treaty was adopted by consensus after 3 years of negotiations, but still needs a vote from the General Assembly in the fall. It requires ratification by 40 nations and is expected to pass, as the same states will be voting on it. The draft agreement requires the United Nations member states to legislate against unauthorized access to information systems, the production or sale of explicit child sexual content, online grooming, deep fakes, misuse of electronic devices, computer-related forgery or theft, and allow states to collect data for convictions and compel service providers to provide incriminating information. It's time to buy one of my caves where you too can become a hermit in the middle of the forest because these people running around make the world suck. Quote, the UN Cybercrime Convention drastically expands government surveillance powers and enables widespread personal data sharing between UN member states. It mandates that member states formalize money laundering offenses and cybercrimes to an extent that would criminalize hacking, whistleblowing, and security research, reports The Rage. The convention requires member states to identify, trace, confiscate, and seize crime-related assets and collect real-time data for requesting states. It also mandates establishing criminal offenses for concealing or disguising the true nature and source of property and intentionally transferring property to conceal its illicit origin. Quote, while the treaty defers most articles to the governance of local laws, it states that states shall not decline to act on the grounds of bank secrecy, writes Lola Leitz, which I think is also she's the one that does The Rage. Opponents of the treaty, including human rights organizations and tech companies, are concerned about provisions allowing authorities to obtain electronic evidence and request data from internet service providers across nations. Quote, the cybercrime treaty adopted by the UN is an unexpected surveillance tool without adequate safeguards. Governments should take their human rights obligations seriously and reject signing or ratifying this treaty, end quote. Deborah Brown, Deputy Technology and Rights Director of Human Rights Watch. Deborah, I'm sorry, but they're going to do this because they know that the only thing that we're going to do in reaction is to make a funny sign and walk around in a circle and protest. And all they have to do is wait until we get hungry and go home. Because nothing's going to change. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom, but let's be realistic. When have you ever seen a protest actually change anything? And I'm not talking about the 70s. I'm not talking about equal rights movements, that kind of thing. I'm talking about post 2000. Post the year 2000, when have you ever seen any protest actually do a damn thing where they're just walking around in a circle with signs? You haven't. That's the answer. You haven't. Quote, global businesses don't support the text as it is. It should be abandoned, said Nick Ashton Hart, the head of the Tech Accord delegation. Quote, the United States welcomes the Ad Hoc Committee on Cybercrime's adoption of the United Nations Conventions Against Cybercrime. The agreement expands the global fight against cybercrime, which is one of the most pervasive challenges of our time, affecting communities around the world, said U.S. Department of State spokesperson Matthew Miller, who is a cuck. All right, so that's the article. But everywhere in this write-up, there's never going to be an exact definition of what it is. Like, okay, the sale of explicit child sexual content, that's pretty well defined. All right. Most people know what that is. But what is unauthorized access to information systems? What is online grooming? Is there a definition for online grooming? Even though let's say that you're just talking to somebody online You have no intention of grooming. It's not even in your personality to do so. You're not even thinking of it. You're thinking about, I don't know, maybe going fishing or something, but you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden you say, you know what? Walking around in a circle with a bunch of funny signs doesn't actually do shit. And all of a sudden you just get charged with online grooming because there's no real definition here. And the same can be said for what is a deepfake? Well, how would you know? I mean, if I do like Photoshop and I don't use AI at all, could I be accused of deepfakes? Misuse of electronic devices. What does that even mean? Does that mean that if I use my iPhone and I call somebody that is on a watch list, that I am now misusing my electronic device? Computer related forgery. Okay, I'll get that one. Forgery is pretty well defined, but let's see. Okay. That's about it. That sort of like, that's what I'm getting at here is that, and it's not just this that's ill-defined. It's everything is ill-defined. There's like almost no technical communication. There's no user interface that is well-defined when it comes to how do I interact with the definition of these things. And because of that, you get situations where just because somebody said you did a thing, all of a sudden you're arrested or your property is absconded with or your freedom is absconded with. It's just, the whole thing is maddening. We're talking about 40 member states of the UN are going to sign this thing. This is going to pass. There's not going to be a reprieve. There's not going to be like, maybe they'll get 100,000 people to hold up a sign and walk around in a park for about an hour and a half, and then they'll get hungry and go home. And then, no, that's not going to do anything. There's only one way out. Well, not one way. There's several ways out. There's nostr, there's freedom tech, there's free and open source software. And this is the direction that we really have to swing hard to, because it's not just about Bitcoin now. It's about all communications. It's about communicating with each other. It's about communicating ideas just out in general. It's about writing. It's about reading. It's about being able to have the right to call somebody on the phone and not be scared that maybe they've said something 10 years ago and now they're on a watch list and you don't know, but because you contacted them, now you're in trouble. The UN has become something other than what it was originally intended for. And there will be people that will say it was always intended to be this. Okay, I'll give you that. But still, at least at the very beginning of the UN, it wasn't like this. They weren't doing shit like this. But over the years, post World War II, the UN has just become worse and worse and worse and worse. And now we're here to this. I was about to say, I don't know how to stop it, but I've already said there is no stopping this. So that's just kind of a dumb thing to say. But just be aware, we're going to have to start taking our rights back on an individual basis. And that does not mean that you won't get in trouble. It means that we have to we have to really qualify what we want for our future as individuals and for the other people that we love and that we like and that we hang around with. We've got to make a decision as to what are we willing to risk to just not do this, to just not comply with the UN, to just not comply with FATF, to not comply with the SEC, to not comply with any of these agencies, because none of these people have our best interest in mind anymore. I don't think they can. I don't think they're able to, because their bureaucracy is just like, it's like driving a car and over the years, black spray paint is being sprayed over the windscreen and the people driving the car just every once in a while, it got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. But now where we're at is that the windscreen is completely blacked out, yet they're still doing 80 miles an hour. And the people inside very well may have everybody's best intentions in mind, but they can't see the crowd they're about to drive into at full speed. So I will give them that. I will say that maybe it's just pure bureaucracy that's just gotten out of hand, that has turned good people into people that we think are now bad people. And I really want to believe that there's no such thing as bad people. There's just people under really terrible circumstances, and driving a car at 80 miles an hour and not being able to see where you go is about as terrible as it gets. All right, so with all that said, that's the end of the show. I am in a new room. We moved a bunch of furniture around in the house, so I am in a completely different space. That, if you were wondering why shit may sound different, because I don't know, I haven't listened to playback yet. I haven't done quality control yet. There may be slapback because I'm sitting facing a wall. If you're hearing something and it is annoying the crap out of you, and and I'm talking about sonically. I'm not talking about like, hey, I didn't like that story you read. Well, that's not going to be helpful. But sonically, the audible stuff. If you hear something like too high end or it's too deep or something like that, throw me a boostagram and let me know. And by the way, boostagrams and streaming sats on Podcasting 2.0 is the way to support this show. And if you want the show to go on, I request your donations so that I can continue to do this, because right after I get this show out, I got to email Get Albie, I got to email Pablo, and I got to email my rancher lawyer friend who is fighting for the King Ranch, and start setting up a lot more interviews than what I normally do, because that's going to have to happen. But I can't do it. It becomes very, very hard to do when nobody is donating, because it's like a signal that says you suck. And if I do totally suck, that's fine. Truth is truth, right? If it's just true that it's just this show's just not working, I get it. But I'm going to just be beating baby seals until I figure it out, because it's like there are times when it feels like this is really going in the right direction, and there are times when it feels that it is not. And I hate the feeling of going in the wrong direction. So I'm asking you to help me to get on and stay in the right direction, and I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.